Welcome to the Passion to Profit Mastermind Coach Showcase. We're featuring successful coaches and their stories of transformation from passionate coach to profitable business owner. Today, we're welcoming Ashley Beatty, founder of Ashley Beatty Coaching. Ashley is a mother and self-development coach. She's also an alum of the Passion to Profit Mastermind. Her own motherhood journey has been one of profound self-discovery and transformation. It has helped her uncover who she is at her core and her purpose. She believes strongly in supporting other moms to understand their own matrescence, the journey to becoming and being a mother, in order to develop a deeper sense of self. Through coaching, she supports how mothers use their motherhood experience to build a thriving life, both personally and professionally. And I want to welcome Ashley. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. It's so great to see you. Well, I mean, you said it in your bio. Tell us a little bit about your passion and, the reason you created this business.
Yeah, I mean it was almost like a no-brainer once it kind of this idea sparked in my head. It was, how am I going to make this profitable? How am I going to actually make this a living out of this? And I think really it's my kids are 10 and 5 now, so this idea is probably about 10 years in the making, even though I didn't always know it. I think that yeah, I think like everyone going through motherhood has had a lot of ups and downs, but ultimately it was realizing that in order to be my best self as a mom, there were a lot of things I had to address. And a lot of things I have had to overcome. And there's the word matrescence. When I discovered that word, suddenly all of those things that I had to address and face and look at suddenly made sense. And this word, most people aren't familiar with, but is a word that's very similar to adolescence. So if you think about all the changes that happen to a teen in the teenage years, the hormonal changes, the physical changes, the identity changes, the relationship changes, all of that happens again in motherhood. It's just not talked about and it's not as normalized. And it also keeps going. So every new phase of a child's life also brings out new changes in the mother as well. And once I realized what that term was, I just couldn't get enough of it. I was so interested in learning more, and wanting to talk about every little piece of motherhood from preconception to pregnancy to postpartum to just being a mom in the day to day. And so it's definitely a passion of mine. And yeah, that's, I think, realizing how powerful that transformation has been for me personally and now professionally as I try to dive into this space on a professional level, I think is what I'm hoping to offer other people.
I love that. And you offered that word to me. I hadn't heard that word before. And it does create such a relief of like, oh, that's what you call this process that moms
Hmm.
go through throughout the different stages. So I thank you for bringing that word to me because it does give me a lot of comfort too, to know that there's people out there thinking about it in this term, in this like graduated way in which it's always unfolding, always different phases of being a mother
Hmm.
throughout that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And you mentioned a little bit about like different phases of motherhood. Like, tell us about like who's your ideal client within that space.
Well, I've gone through different, I would say, I've worked with mothers at different stages, and I wouldn't say I've honed in on one exact um, ideal because um, it's hard to find the time. I think I have worked with new moms, and that's really challenging to carve out the space, particularly if they're home alone with the child. Your schedule is not yours to to dictate. Hi there.
Hi, how's it
Um,
going?
Good. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think initially I had thought I wanted to attract clients that were very similar to me at the similar stage of motherhood, meaning that I've gone through the early stage of the really physical part of motherhood, of the sleepless nights, of the carrying the um, a child and all of those things that really are very demanding on your body, and then you're suddenly kind of waking up out of that and going, "Oh my god, what just happened to me?" Uh, um, and then trying to get back on track, and with a realization that you're not the same person that you were when you started out. Uh, but I think that I'm realizing that's yeah, I want to work with those people, but that's not necessarily something that women realize that they want and need as a result of motherhood. So still figuring that piece out. But yeah, I think that any mom at any stage I am open to working with at this point.
Right. Got it. And so what do you do? Like what would be a typical program that you would take a mom through, or like what would happen in the coaching services that you offer?
Mhm. So I have mostly one-on-one coaching. And it depends. I take the client wherever they are at, and we look at where they want to get to. So in some cases, it's just carving out space for themselves to not be with their children and to actually just make sense of their own experience and understand what they're going through. In other cases, it's maybe I have, I can think of another client, it's health related. And no, I'm not someone who can offer, I'm not a health expert, but what is it that they need in their own mindset in order to accomplish their goals? And then I'm, as a matrescence educator, incorporating little pieces of that I can share that often help to reframe their outlook, because often the conflict is wanting to um, carry on with life the way it was pre-kids, and how difficult that can be afterwards, and the emotions that that brings up, the grief that your life isn't what it was, and how can I, continue to get in exercise? How can I continue to work as hard in my career, and all of those things that we want to still have, but have all these added responsibilities. So matrescence education is usually woven in to coaching sessions.
Got it. So it sounds pretty holistic then for all the different pieces of mom that you're helping out with, or you're at least is connected to the coaching work itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say too, like there's other clients that come for professional reasons, but you can't take out, wanting to set goals professionally, but you can't ignore the fact that the motherhood piece, you can't look at your life in silos, I think. And so that's, yeah, another important piece of the
Yeah.
work.
I completely agree with that. That is so true. Well, tell us a little bit more about your beginnings. So we met through the Royal Roads Network, and tell me about your transformation when you decided to be a coach to becoming a business owner.
Yeah, so when I set out to do the coaching program, I was very hesitant to say, "Oh, I'm going to have my own coaching business, and I'm going to have my, be a business owner." Uh, but the coaching program itself at Royal Roads, because you do so much personal groundwork and foundational work, I realize that that was just me setting my own limiting beliefs. So when I did graduate from Royal Roads, I did say I did launch my own practice. And that transformation is like motherhood, ongoing. It's cyclical. It's has its ups and downs. I think the biggest challenge is the imposter syndrome. So that identity piece that for me was also a big challenge in motherhood was seeing myself as a mother and owning that and stepping into that. Same thing as a business owner. I have these preconceived notions of what a business owner should look like, power suit, glass corner office with glass walls, and so trying to carve out what it actually looks like for me, that has been a process, I think, that I'm still uncovering. And, just when I think I've figured it out, a piece doesn't fit. So then I have to still build what that looks like for me.
Right. Right. Well, based on what I know, and we've known each other for a while now, that imposter piece, it actually comes up for everyone. But for you, this is really such a specific niche and lane. We were talking just before the call that there's other coaches out there who work with moms, who work with busy moms or stressed out moms, but that's not what your coaching practice is. And so the idea that, you're embodying the type of woman that you're coaching, you're really also showing your vulnerability and through those same struggles as you go through matrescence phases as well.
Mhm,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Was there ever a first niche before mothers? Did you have an idea before that?
Uh, no, but if I'm being honest, I mean, I do see the breadcrumbs of like my whole journey, and I'm not going to go into details, but of like, university and my undergraduate degree and things, but there were certainly, threads woven in of um, wanting to help people, wanting to work in sort of the mental health space. Um, so I think that has always been that has always been true for me. But the motherhood piece, that was a newer realization, and then that has stuck, I think, ever since I figured that piece out.
Right.
There was just something in my soul that said, this is it. And it hasn't wavered since.
What's gotten easier since since you kind of surrendered to that niche?
In a lot of ways, well, more so in the beginning, making decisions. It was, yeah, of course I'm going to pursue a graduate program. And of course I'm going to get my matrescence certification. And of course I'm going to make this. Now that's getting a little bit harder, but certainly it made those decisions in the beginning no brainers. And I think your program, Passion to Profits, I think that title spoke to me because of that idea of it. It is a passion. I could go out and get any kind of business training if I wanted to, but for me, this is a work of love and passion, and so I really want to continue to build on that and make decisions from that same place that also hopefully make money as well.
Right, right. Well said. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And so what other challenges did you face in the beginning when you were trying to figure out, is this really the step for you and going into motherhood, coaching around motherhood and matrescence? What other challenges did you face in kind of finding clients, getting clients? Anything you can share there?
Yeah, I can think of two things. One is that because this is a non-developed space, it's not like there are other people that I'm trying to model or even that I know what people need. I know what I needed, so I'm continuing to offer that, but I feel like I'm working in a space that hasn't is just on the verge of being, um, developed. And I'm not saying I'm a pioneer by any means. There's a lot of people actually doing work, in motherhood support, but just not in this corner of the world as much. And so I feel like that's been a huge challenge because it's like you don't know what you don't know. And that's true of the clients. My clients don't know what they don't know yet. And so they don't know that they need this kind of support and aren't as open to it. And also, there's not then someone people I can look up to and say, you know what, I like that piece of their business, but I don't like that. I like that piece. I like that, like you're not able, I literally have to I feel like I'm building everything out of nothing, um, except for my own passion. And the other thing that has been challenging, I think I sort of touched on it at the beginning, is in terms of the clients. Again, because people don't necessarily know they need it, uh, I haven't been able to pinpoint a specific, what's the best way to work with those clients? Because one on one, while that's definitely my strength, a mom finding the time to, you know, to carve out to work one on one with someone if their job doesn't support it, if their employer doesn't support it. Uh, they're having to do that on their own free time, which is very limited. And I think financially, it's really hard because you're trying to convince a population of people that do everything for everyone else and save very little resources for themselves. So I feel like I'm working against some societal norms there and cultural beliefs that are deeply, deeply rooted. So that's been challenging.
Right. Well, the flip side could be true too, that, because there aren't a lot of role models in this area, this is how you can make this uniquely yours. And one thing I
Mhm.
about when I see your posts, they're so authentic, they're so genuine. There's such vulnerability in you sharing and like showing motherhood out in the open, the way that you do. So can you talk a little bit more about like that vulnerability piece of like how you've tried to approach this to kind of break through the stereotypes around that?
Mhm. Yeah, I think when you say what you read feels authentic, that's what um, anything I share is not because I have a schedule of when I'm going to post something or when I'm going to share. It's because something is speaking to me. So either I'm reading something and I'm resharing it with my own thoughts because it was powerful and it was very potent for me, or it's blogging is something I just started to do last summer. With the help of your program and my matrescent certification, really uncovered a huge barrier that was in my own way was my own self-expression. And as a business owner, being able to express yourself is really important. It's in your branding, especially when your brand is you, and I just leaned into writing and finding my voice through writing. So I don't try. I only share things that really are stirring inside me that have just bubbled to the surface. And then I put them on paper. It's not, as opposed to thinking I've got to write a blog post this week, what's it going to be? I just have notes on my phone of things that as they come up, sort of thing. And that's how I try to show up authentically and share what's happening and as it relates to my own experience. I also thought originally that I had to share my motherhood experience, the the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I had to, share all sides and be completely vulnerable and expose my whole family. And I've learned that that also isn't true, that there's ways that I can still show up authentically and don't have to get into nitty-gritty details that feel really too oversharing, if you and if that makes sense.
Yeah. And but I admire this thing that you did with blogging, because that is exactly the timing that most people would have difficulty putting themselves out there. And so because you were being yourself and you were, working with the working with the material of your life, as you got inspired and then writing about it organically, I mean, that just created such a natural, well, at least on the outside, it created such a natural lean in for you to really express yourself and put yourself out there in a way that a lot of coaches like to sit behind the curtain, like to sit site. And so I just wanted to appreciate that, as you said that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. And so talking a little bit, switching gears a little bit about your growth, and we've got a few more questions, and then we'll open it up to any Q&A that we have for today. Switching gears to kind of money mindset, what do you feel now that you've had your practice for a while? How do you feel about the money mindset that it takes to be successful?
I did write down a couple notes about this question because I think this is a tricky one. I think it's a very personal question, right? That it's going to look different for everyone. But for me, addressing barriers was something that I wrote down because I feel like you do have to do that inner work, that deep reflection about what is my money mindset and how does it show up in my life? How does it show up in my decision making? And so that reflection is ongoing. It's not something you do once and move on. The other thing that I have realized is the importance for me of coming from a place of abundance. And that doesn't mean coming from a place of where I have lots of money. It means that feeling of I'm not afraid of, I'm not going to make a decision out of fear. I'm going to make a decision because it feels right. And I don't know, to give you an example, I tried to offer a group coaching program, and I had done some workshops and then had made it offerings to people to invite them into like the next stage. And I had one person show up, and I thought, okay, I could go back to the group and I could keep, changing offers and enticing them and doing different things. But I recognized that that was me operating in a space of scarcity, of fear, that I need to make this happen and I need to get them into this group, as opposed to just acknowledging, okay, what isn't working here and what's it bringing up for me? Um, and then being able to switch gears from there. And that just felt so much better. There was so much more freedom in that. And it just feels better. Um, so yeah, trying to make decisions from that place uh, is important for me. I also have another part-time job, which I think creates that abundance for me too. I'm not at this point making all my business decisions based on for financial reasons, because I want to have that space to be able to make decisions based on what feels right.
Mhm.
And to be able to follow those threads and breadcrumbs and see where they lead.
I think you just answered how it is that you're so vulnerable in your writing and in your offering. The fact that you approach it from an abundance mindset, that absolutely comes through. And I think a lot of coaches will focus on oh, I've got this one client, this one really good potential client that could lead to more work, and I'm going to hold on to it. And they're so focused on how little something is, rather than how much they're actually affecting, they're getting other leads, or they're getting other interest, or people who are kind of lurking in the periphery. They don't focus on that those seeds that are planted and that are growing. They focus on the one. I just have one, or I just have one or two. And then they're so worried about losing them. And that really does, that mindset of lack and scarcity, that really would change how you take care, or how you handle having a few clients at a time. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It can create a feedback loop of scarcity. Think about it. Well, you've talked a little bit about, making decisions, like the decision that you made to really kind of embrace motherhood and matrescence at the beginning. Are there any other examples of some tough decisions that you've made in your practice? And how do you do that?
Yeah, I think a recent decision was whether or not to move forward with this group coaching program. Um, and how do I make those decisions? I think I I'm getting or I'm learning to, again, it comes down to that self-understanding and that self-awareness, and looking at, okay, what resistance and what stickiness is showing up. And there was a lot showing up with this group coaching program. And ultimately, when I made the decision not to run it, the way it was set up at that point, I felt such relief. And I think so. To make hard decisions, I look inward and look at how it's affecting me and what's getting in my way. I think that's the best way I can put it, is I look inward as opposed to looking outward and doing the pros and cons, or looking at it from that way. Certainly that will factor in, depending on you know, the weight of a decision, but turning down the noise, the exterior noise, and really listening to myself, and honoring what is the best thing for me and for my clients.
Got it. Got it. Lovely. And, is there a myth out there when you think about what most coaches believe about how to grow a business? Are there any myths that you're already starting to bust in your experience?
Um, this one was a tricky one. I think I would say that there's only one way to grow a business, is a myth. That that it has to be online and you have to show up on, Instagram Reels or whatever to get clients. And I don't I think there's lots of different ways to grow a business.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And when times get tough, what else keeps you going? I mean, you mentioned this is your passion. So how do you hold on to that when you're having a tough day?
I look to the things that bring that joy and that spark. And you know right now I think I'm going through, I think I was saying before we hit record here, that just feeling kind of disconnected, from what I had thought I would be doing at this point in 2024. And so instead of, again, that's that scarcity, that's the fear showing up of, oh, I'm not meeting, exactly where I wanted to be, and reframing. So kind of coaching myself, I guess, and reframing, well, okay, maybe it's not, but what else is it? And what else could it be? And looking and just focusing on the things that bring me joy, because I know that that just has a ripple effect. If you talk about the things you're passionate about, it's amazing what the effect that can have on other people. And if I just read something that inspires me and then I get excited and there's a blog post, or there's an idea about what I could do next, and I just follow those things. So again, I think it's that inward um, inward looking that is helpful.
And you can see your energy shift as you're talking about it. It's like nothing's there, but then you get inspired, and then the energy burst happens to create a blog post. So it's just interesting. Just even as you're describing it, I feel this like thing that kind of yin and yangs
Yeah.
kind of breathes, depending on how inspired you are. And I
Yeah.
as well with my passion is that, I tend to have things to look forward to. I tend to reset myself if I'm ever in a feeling of funk, and I'm feeling like my energy is kind of like stagnant or whatever. I stop. I don't want to put stagnant energy into anything I'm doing. So I will take a break. I will go outside. I will get some fresh air. I will do whatever it takes to kind of, re-sink into the good place of my business. And when it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And I think too, recognizing that and normalizing that process, that it isn't always going to be up here. And so it's okay to be in this funk, because I know that it's going to have a lesson for me, and I know it's going to lead me to the next thing that I need to go to, and that trust in the process, to use a Royal Roads expression, and trust in myself has been really, really important.
Yeah.
And critical to, keeping the momentum.
I love how you said that. That's exactly what I see. Well, I'm wondering, just due to time, I wonder if we can go to the speed round, where I'm going to ask you some questions, looking for like, a couple word answers. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. True or false? Is the profession of coaching saturated?
False.
What makes you say that?
Well, I think for the area that I want to get into, I don't think that it is. I think mothers could use a lot more support. So I think that there's a lot of space for coaching.
Awesome. And next one, what do you wish every coach knew about starting a business?
That every coach and every business has its own path.
What's one thing a coach needs to be disciplined about?
Their passion.
And what words of wisdom would you have for the next generation of coaches?
So I'm throwing off the speed round here with a pause, but words of wisdom for the next generation of coaches. Trust yourself.
And last question, what's next for you, or what are you up to right now?
Well, I've got two things happening in the background as I continue to work with one-on-one clients, but I've been looking at different ways that I can connect in my community. For me, I feel it's important to I don't know, show up authentically, and I find that I want to do more in person, I guess. And so I'm looking at different ways that I can share my matrescence education in my community. So I'm passionate about yoga, so through yoga studios and other maternal mental health supports that are out there. I also am looking at publishing, taking some of my blog posts and creating a book that I can publish. And then I'm also in the early stages of exploring a podcast idea.
Well,
So yeah, which is something that's been on my bucket list for a very long time. But yeah.
Well, now's the time. Everybody, myself included, is working on a podcast these days. But those are amazing, and you have a voice, you have a focus, you have a clear intention with that focus and with the people that you want to serve. And so it would be, those are all different mediums that would really just lend themselves for you to really get your message out there even further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pause there and turn it over and see if anyone has any questions. I know, Kirsten, thank you for joining us live too. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of Ashley?
Trying to think, I think a question isn't arising just at the moment, but I think just appreciation more than anything, and awareness of that it's very resonating with me, this idea that we all have our different path. And I can see that you seem to have really allowed yourself to sort of surrender to that knowing, and sort of that as these things arise. And I think I think it gives me, it empowers me to like trust that, like that process, that we're navigating a very vast field, especially if you're going into your very specific sort of niche, and it's not as clear as some other paths of like, this is this step, and this step, then this step. And so when it's not like that, it requires a different way of being. And I hear you've really accepted and are leveraging that. So I think it gives me like, oh, okay, like that's so just appreciation more than anything.
Lovely. Well,
Thanks
thank you
for
for
saying
sharing
that.
that. Yes. Ashley, do you have any reflection on that?
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that reflected back. I really do, because when you're in the thick of it, it doesn't always feel like how I just described it, right? Where I'm like, oh, I'm just surrendering and it's gonna be fine, right? Then how that can actually looks in real life is, oh my goodness, panic and having to do a lot of self-talk to work through it and sit in the discomfort of those things. But I think as I'm also listening to you say that, uh, I'm thinking about my Royal Roads experience and my coach training, how there was such an emphasis on the personal foundation, um, and all of the work on who you are and who you be, how that continues to show up in entrepreneurship, and business ownership. It's it's so important. I think such a big piece, and the more I work on that, the more it shows up in my business in positive ways, I think. So I think as challenging as it is, and often something we want to shy away from, I think it's the best thing to focus on.
Lovely, lovely. I'm just getting goosebumps because it's like it's so parallel, isn't it? Like the journey to become a coach and all of that kind of identity and groundwork that it takes to become a coach, and really show up for people and be be vulnerable and be empathetic and be relatable to the person across from you. The beautiful soul across from you is how I say it. But then the business owner is like another kind of launch point into that same type of personal groundwork, where it's like, well, now you've got all those tools as coach, but you're becoming a business owner, which means you're stepping out from behind, the computer or the desk or whatever, and you're the face of what you're building, of your heart-based business. You're the face of it and you're the voice of it. So how do you do that groundwork that helps you get over those imposter syndrome feelings and those kind of anxieties and limits, so that you can put yourself out there? And trust me, I've been doing this now for 10 years plus. It still unfolds. There's still other levels of putting yourself out there. That's really fascinating. Wonderful. Well, Ashley, anything else that we didn't cover that you were hoping that we would ask about today?
I'm just looking at my little scribbles that I had written down. I don't think so. Yeah. Oh, I think one of the questions you had, an additional question was leveraging your network.
Yes.
And I think that's an interesting one because for me, I know a lot of moms, right? A lot of moms know a lot of moms. And so you'd think it would be really easy to tap into that network. And I think even one day I sat down and just wrote down every single mom I knew. Um, but that's actually been harder than I thought. But one thing that I have done to leverage it is I've leaned into saying yes to people. So if someone asks, "Can I join this?" or "Can I share this that you wrote?" or whatever, I've just said yes. And even though that's uncomfortable, because you never know where it will lead. Um, and I think that has been a good lesson to learn. And again, that what would have held me back was my own discomfort with it. Of I don't want to, no, I don't want you to, you know. And so I think saying yes is helpful. But also on the flip side, um, being intentional with who I speak to as well about my business. And that's something that has shown up a few times. And this isn't necessarily a leverage your network. I think this is just leading me to another thought, really, of there's been times when I've, had an idea and I've spoken to someone about it. And then that idea went all the way over here. And I didn't intend it to. And I kept going in that direction because that was not the person that I probably should have spoken to that was going to keep me centered and aligned and where I had originally intended to go. And so I've learned just to be mindful about who I'm talking to when I'm trying to make business decisions. I think that has been really eye opening because so many people do want to help. But it's important to remember the different perspectives and keeping true to myself and what I want to the direction I want to go.
Right. So almost like having that conversation was nice and fruitful, but it sort of led you in a tangent that may be different from what you actually wanted or intended.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I thought I should go that way and then realized, wait, no, this isn't.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I've had that a lot in my work too, from coaches just asking me about what I'm doing and volunteering great ideas or volunteering, oh, have you ever thought about doing this? And I kind of when I have that happen to me, I kind of metabolize it. I actually in the moment think about how does that idea taste? How does it feel if I were to just, take a bite out of that idea and actually visualize metabolizing it. And if it feels good, it'll feel good. It'll be like a yummy cookie.
Mm-hmm.
And if it feels weird or off or sour or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
stale, like then that's the feeling that I'll get. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to I practice this all the time. But I don't often say it is that I metabolize something. I metabolize how does that really sit with me? How does it
Mm-hmm.
feel in my gut? And if it doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
good, it's not the direction I'm gonna go. I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely not going to make a quick decision on it. I'm going to sit, I'm going to wait, sleep on it kind of thing. And then use my values to help me, pressure test that choice later on. And then it usually doesn't pass the gauntlet of my values test.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. What wonderful. Well, we're almost at time. Are there any other questions, Kristen or? we've covered all the ones that I had. There was maybe a few more, but I feel like you touched upon them, Ashley, in the beginning of our talk today. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing yourself with us. Oh, Kirsten, did you just make a motion? Did you want to have a question? Oh, okay.
Oh no,
Oh, I thought I saw you move. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story, your beginning story with us. It's so powerful and it's so you. And it just takes me back to some of our earliest conversations where you had this thing and you didn't quite know what it was, what to do. And so I'm just so appreciative of your growth during this last year, and how much you stay true to yourself. And you are carving your own path. You are a trailblazer, whether you want to admit it or not. You're a trailblazer in this space of matrescence. And I thank you so much for sharing your story with the Passion to Profit community.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity and for all your support along the way. It really has been instrumental in getting me to where I am so far.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I want to just say, if you want to get in touch with Ashley, Ashley is on her website at ashleybeatty, BEATTY.ca. And she's on social on LinkedIn and on Instagram at _Ashley_Beatty_. Is that right?
Yeah.
Three underscores.
Yeah.
And you can find her there. Of course, I'll have the links available when I post this full video, and everyone will get a copy of the link of the full recording. But thank you so much again, Ashley, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
If you'd like to learn more about the Passion to Profit Mastermind, visit my website at jessicamenka.com/ppm to learn more. You can book a free consultation. This is 45 minutes to walk through a business consultation for you to help you build the path to profitability for your heart-based business. This program is a 10-week program, and it helps you bring your heart-based business to life. We focus on who you serve, what you offer, and how much you charge. If you schedule a business assessment using the links included on that webpage, you will get my free 10 mistakes guide. You don't want to miss it. So let's build the path to your profitability today.